Hello, I'm Kevin Glad. I'm the co-founder of Complete Wealth Care. We specialize in revenue cycle management for dental practices. Our goal is to make sure insurance companies pay dentists for their services. We are finding that besides dental expertise, that many practitioners are looking for other skills to help maximize every aspect of their revenue cycle management. So, to answer that, we put together a series of little mini success series. And today we're going to be talking about marketing. We brought on Mark Thackeray from Salt Lake City, Utah. Hello, Mark.
Hey Kevin, how
He
are
is the
you?
owner. I'm great. He's the owner of the John Gault Group. It's a nationwide marketing company that drives customers to your door. So I'm gonna turn the time over to Mark, and he's gonna tell us how he does that. After his presentation, then he'll stick around for a little bit to answer any questions that anybody has. Is that fair, Mark?
That works great. That
Excellent.
works great.
I'm gonna turn it over to you. You should be able to share your screen and take it away.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Kevin. I really appreciate this opportunity to to be with you. Honestly, I think what you're doing is a great value add. I mean, that's we talk about that a lot with our clients is just what can we do to provide additional value to patients, to our team, and things like that. So I think this is a great series, and I'm really excited to be here. So wanted to talk about one thing that's really that I am really excited about that doesn't get enough press these days, really. And we're going to talk a little bit about referral generation and to do that proactively instead of waiting for referrals to come, which is kind of the default that a lot of practices do, and the challenge really is that nowadays we're faced with so many different options. So many people are agencies in particular. I understand I'm a marketing agency and I understand the challenge of dentists get barraged daily by marketing agencies that are claiming to, get so many new patients this next month and it's really enticing, right? They make some very compelling offers, even some guarantees. But the reality of the situation is that the vast majority of your patients will still come from referrals, but we don't do enough proactively on our end to maximize those referrals. And so we're going to dive into that a little bit today. I put together this slideshow to make it a little easier to go through, and we're going to go through a case study of a practice that I helped generate 584 referrals in just 12 months. So we'll break down what that looks like. We're going to talk about why referrals are so important. Not that really needs to be a long discussion because I think people get that, but also the psychology behind why people refer, because that's important to understand. And then how our system, an actual referral system, increases your referral opportunities. So a little bit about me, I'll just share real quickly. Here's some pictures of me and my family. I've got four girls, and you can see some of the things that we're up to. We've got pets. I love to surf. This one up in the upper right-hand corner, I built a brick oven. I make pizzas. In fact, I'm doing a pizza night with one of my daughters. She does that to raise money for soccer and for other things that she's looking to purchase. And so we'll probably do 30 something pizzas tonight. And so it's really fun. I love kind of helping the next generation of entrepreneurs. Um, but I am a few details about me. I'm the former marketing director for a DSO. So I understand working with a group, but I primarily now work with private practices. So I've got, dozens and dozens of clients all throughout the country that I work with. I'm also the host of the Dental Marketing Secrets podcast, where we share tips and advice on what's working right now in the world of marketing and dentistry. Founder of an agency, married to my wife, Allie. Like I mentioned, we have four daughters. We have kind of an adopted daughter from Norway. She was a study abroad kid that came over and just fell in love with her. She's awesome. Um, but anyway, so let's get into this. So let me start with this case study, just because I think it'll help set the stage for what's possible. Not going to say that guarantee that this is what your practice will become, but it is. I just want you to see that this is truly possible. And like I said, this particular practice, generated 584 referrals in a year, a single year, which was a 28% increase in new patients, decreased their acquisition costs by 19% year over year, doubled the number of new patients that they got from referrals specifically, and then doubled their profitability year over year, which is something we don't always talk about. Just because your reduced acquisition costs for these type of patients factors into your profitability as well. So why referrals and why should we get so excited about referrals? So I kind of took this from, League of Their Own, classic film, uh, but just referrals are in that same class. When we talk about referrals, these are patients that are much more likely to convert into new patients. They negotiate less. They have a greater amount of trust in you and your abilities. They tend to accept treatment more easily and more often. They tend to refer more people to your practice. Like I mentioned before, they cost less to acquire than non-referred patients, and they typically remain patients longer than most. And so, for all these reasons, they are the ones that we should be going after, right? Before we do anything else, honestly, we should be spending more of our time and effort to generate these type of patients for all these reasons. And you guys, any doctors listening to this, understand they're probably nodding your head right now just because you see that all the time, right? You see a referred patient comes in and they are so much easier to work with all around, and if you could clone your clients, clone your patients, more often than not, you choose your referral patients, right? So what does it look like? What does that referral, if we're able to create a practice that drives more referrals proactively, then you're going to see things like this, where 60% plus of your new patients are coming from referrals. You're not having to spend so much time on social media every single day because your patients become essentially your ambassadors, where they're spreading the word for you. You don't need a massive advertising budget. You become much more well known in your community and sought out in your community. You're not chasing patients anymore. They're the ones that are coming to you, and you don't need to discount your services like you tend to do when you get in some of those, Facebook and Instagram ads. A lot of those are discounted offerings and mailers. They're trying to get people in the door because with a hook like that. With referrals, that's different. The referrals, they come with the trust built in. You don't need to do that. And it's so much easier. And plus, you could start being even better to your patients. You dream up ways to surprise your patients. And that's something that I absolutely love to do with your patients and with clients, just to help them devise these ways to do that, because then it becomes so much more enjoyable for you and your team, right? And then patients become eager to talk about your practice because they actually have something to say. I mean, when you are the one going out of your way to surprise them, to wow them, now they have something worthwhile to share with their family and friends. If it's just a satisfactory visit, they don't really have any reason to share with their friends because they got what they expected. But when they get more than what they expected, that's when referrals really start to come in. So here's where most practices get it wrong. And I know we're just kind of flying through this, but I just want to cover this because it's valuable, and you could go back. Hopefully, I don't know, Kevin, if you'll make this available, but I think you'll have a chance to review this too, if in case you want to reference this in the future. But a lot of practices, they employ a kind of a hope and pray mentality when it comes to referrals. They just hope that their patients will send referrals. They try and do a good job, and that's important, right? You want to be competent clinically, you want to deliver a good patient experience, sure, but they don't do anything above and beyond that. They just assume that patients afterwards will start talking to their family and friends, which isn't always the case, right? More often than not, we walk out of the office and we're already on a million things, right, that we have to do. And so a lot of times when they're looking back at this, they realize, oh, okay, yeah, I have made a huge mistake. There's a lot of things that I could do differently when it comes to referrals. So one of the things that, and I kind of talked about these already, but they feel sheepish about asking for referrals. Okay. And that's something I'm going to dive into here in just a sec. And failure to understand the value that they provide. That gives you the confidence to ask for referrals and do so, confidently. I could have said that twice, but that's okay. But it's important to remember that you are the one that's providing that value. Once you understand your true value, it makes it so much easier to then ask people to share with their family and friends. Plus, there's no expectation of referrals. That's where a lot of practices also get it wrong. They don't make this part of their overall process of what they deliver to their patients. So let's go through this little case study. Here's a picture of the practice. It was down in Lehi, Utah. There are five. It's a bigger practice. There are five dentists, six hygienists. They were doing 3.2 million production each year and had been open since 2005. So well-established practice, lots of docs, lots of providers, doing great. But before they were doing about 250, 255 referrals a year on average, which most practice would be like, oh, that's awesome. I love those, you know. But once they start to recognize that there's things that in their control that they could do as far as outreach goes, then the sky's the limit, right? So no formalized system, hope and pray mentality, and that they transform that into 584 referrals. So over double the amount of referrals that they got, multiple referral systems in place. Well, not quite double, I guess I should say. And then this mentality where they can actually affect referrals, you know, where it's before a lot of practices think, no, there's nothing really I can do. We're doing our best. We'll do a good experience, but they don't realize the influence that they have on referrals. And it actually it pertains to so much more than just what happens inside the practice during their visit. Why people refer? Now, this is an important thing to understand because once we comprehend the psychology behind referrals, it makes it a lot easier to engineer those opportunities. One, it's in our DNA to refer things. You know, you think about years ago. I mean, especially you go way, way, way back. You know, to hunters, gatherers, things like that. I mean, they had to communicate to stay alive a lot of times. Like, oh, there's a big threat over here, maybe a tiger or something like that, or maybe there's a warring, an invading kind of army coming out. If we can communicate that, we survive, right? It's kind of a survival characteristic, right? But we see this nowadays all the time. We love to refer people to movies and restaurants and podcasts and books and all these things because we derive a lot of satisfaction from that. When someone comes back and says, you know, Kevin, you know, you told me about this restaurant and I went there and it was amazing. It makes you feel good, right? I mean, it makes you feel, you get that hit of dopamine, you feel great about doing that. And that's one of the reasons, it's the primary reason really why we do that. And we've talked about that. And it's a great way to avoid things as well. You know, so if you don't want to waste your time, you tell people, I wouldn't even bother doing that. You know, so in my line, there's certain things where I say to dentists all the time, like, I wouldn't even touch that if I were you. And it's great because then now they know from someone who has been there, done that, that they don't even need to waste their time, right? So these are all reasons why we do it and why they're so beneficial, okay? Plus, it removes the mental math of trying to figure this out on our own. And this thing is so important because that can take up so much time. You know, if we're trying to research, if I'm a new patient, move to the area, and I'm looking for a new provider, new dental home, I could, you know, easily go to the internet and I could pull up maps and see conveniently where are the local dentists. And then I could dive into each website and see, okay, well, what's the difference? Do some comparison. I could call up, I could go into the practice, I could check that out on my own. But if I were to do all that, it's going to take me hours and hours and hours, right? But if I have someone I trust who says, you know, like Kevin comes to me and says, you know, Mark, I know you're new to the area. You really need to go see Dr. Johnson. She is amazing. Like, I've tried other ones. You don't even need to bother. Just go see her, try her out, and tell me what you think, you know, and you'll see for yourself. That removes all that mental math. And that's amazing, right? For me, I'm like, hallelujah. I don't even have to touch all that. I don't have to do all the diligence and all that stuff. I can just trust Kevin's recommendation. And so it's huge, right? That's a huge thing, especially nowadays as we're so strapped for time, right? So this is a question I like to ask practices. How do you feel, or how did you feel when someone thanked you for a recommendation that you gave? It's a reminder again of the power of referrals. So one of the first things that as we're trying to build out more our referral mentality and a true proper referral system, one of the first things we need to do is recognize the value and the opportunity that we provide. As providers, we have a unique position, right? You have a unique position. You have all this experience and expertise. Most of you have worked with thousands of patients at this time in different settings, right? I mean, they have each one their own unique scenario. And all that comes into play for patients. All that is value to the patient because now you've been able to see and do so many different things, and you can provide your recommendation expertise to that patient. But if you don't realize that that's what you're doing, then you're not going to be confident in asking for referrals, period. It's how it is. I mean, if you don't realize the effects that you can have on someone's life, let's say you're a cosmetic dentist or an orthodontist and you're aligning teeth, and now they have this picture perfect smile that radiates confidence. They act differently because they see themselves differently. If you don't mentally understand that and deep down understand that, then you're not going to be able to confidently ask for referrals as well as you could have. And that's going to be a huge missed opportunity. So first thing you have to do is start with the value that you provide. Recognize that you do have that value. You do have that advantage that you can bring to the table. I know I'm going to skip over a few things just in respect of time, but you do have what I call a moral obligation. As someone, if I'm a patient and I'm coming to you because I trust you, I know that you've gone to school for this. I know you've seen thousands of patients. I have issues. I don't know how to solve those issues. I'm coming to you because I trust you and I need your expertise to guide me and recommend course of action. You have a moral obligation to tell me the best route, I mean, and that sometimes again, that's all ties up into your value. And that's going to help you generate more referrals. When someone comes to you and they place their trust in you, if you just say, well, you could do this and you could do that, you could go this route, but I'm going to leave it up to you, you lose a lot of that trust because now I think, well, does this guy really even know what he's talking about? I mean, he's supposedly a dentist. He's supposedly been doing this for a long time, and he's not even sure which way the best way to go. So he's asking me, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. So it's you have a moral obligation to do that, and it's what I call an enlightened mindset too. The next thing and I alluded to this before, is this is so important, is setting clear expectations so the patient knows what to look for. You have to set that table of expectations. So when the patient comes into your office, they are looking for those things because you outlined to them. You outlined what they're going to expect. And now, once you've created those expectations, now you strategically engineer opportunities to exceed and go above and beyond those expectations. And that's where a lot of referral magic comes from. It's just a way for you to over deliver on the value that you're providing that patient. And it doesn't really have to be a massive thing, but if you don't set the expectations before, then patients are just going to assume that that's all part of the package. So that's very, very important to outline what the patient's going to experience, how long it's going to be. Here's what you're going to do next, just so that they are fully aware of what's coming down the pike. And then you just slip in different ways. And this is a fun part too, because you get to involve your team to engineer these ways, come up with ways to surprise your patients. And it could be with, by over delivering in terms of, hey, it usually takes 7 to 10 days for us to get this back from the lab, but and you've worked it out with the lab to get them back in a couple of days. And so you can call them back and say, hey, we're so excited. We got these to you twice as fast as we thought. We were really excited to share that with you. There's ways like that. You can do that all the time. And it really doesn't have to change much of what you're doing right now. It's just the way that you communicate those. There was, I'll share a quick example. But I started a photography company right out of college with one of my friends. And eventually referrals became the big driver. There was a couple of things, but referrals was a big one. Once I dove into this and zeroed in on referrals, it was a massive lever in my business. And I remember the first year I started implementing this, doubled the amount of referrals that I got, which was huge for my company at that time. So, and one of the things that we did was when I was meeting with prospective clients, I would ask them a series of questions about the shoot, about the event, about themselves. I would even ask kind of seemingly insignificant questions like, well, what's your favorite candy or what's your favorite thing to drink? Just getting to know you things. But then what I would do is I would include that, whatever they said, in the package that I delivered to them when I was all finished with them. When I'd finished the shoot, I finished editing all the photos and I sent it back to them in a nice package. I included that, snack or drink or treat or whatever it was. And now they were thinking, holy cow, how did they know that was my favorite thing? They couldn't remember that I'd asked them, but it didn't matter. Like they were just so blown away. And another thing I would do was I would set that expectation that, okay, it takes me 4 weeks to get all these photos edited and back to you. So they have a mind, they have an expectation there. And then I would say, I'd get them back to them a week and be so excited. I said, hey, once I got started editing these, I just couldn't stop. I'm so pumped to share these with you. And they were just blown away because most of the people would take sometimes 2 to 3 months in the industry to get those images back. And I was getting them back in a week and they looked amazing. And that was just a huge thing. But it can be these things can be pretty simple. You really don't have to change radically what you're doing. It's just the way you think about them and the way you communicate those. So the final thing is make it easy for them to refer. So look at it from a patient perspective and identify those points of friction that may be causing them some hesitation. So we talked about the first one was just starting with value. If you're not confident in yourself, that's going to be communicated to the patient. They're going to be less likely to refer. So that's something that you could work on. You could also look at, is there some way to lower the risk for a referral to come in, right? So someone could share about your practice, but they still have to assume some of the risk to come in, to schedule time out of their busy schedule to do all that to come in. So how do you make that easier? So it's ways this will be unique to your practice, but it could be, hey, we offer a free exam and x-rays for anyone that's referred from our existing patients, just to make it, we don't want to put any pressure on you to say yes or anything like that. We just want to make sure it's a good fit. You could do something like that. You could do a discounted one. You could do any number of things. But the point is, you're looking for those points of friction and trying to remove those so that it's a smooth slide into your practice, essentially. So I'm not going I'm just going to stop right there, Kevin. I think that's covers the basis. No, I just have this was my last slide actually. So that's good. I thought I had some more, but we could do some Q&A right now. And then, yeah, I'll turn it back over to you, Kevin.
Excellent. I tell you, Mark, I love that message. When you talked about a dentist understanding their value, one of the things that we always like to teach, well, in any business, right? You have to understand your unique value proposition. And I love that it's not just the service you provide, it's the experience that you provide. People are looking these days, they're looking for um, really an overall experience. And some of the examples you gave by giving them their favorite treat, it's like those things make such a difference. But I wanted to ask you
Yeah,
then, because you said you were a marketer for DSO, what is your unique value proposition?
great question.
I'm assuming it's the system you built, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, so I would say that's a great question. I think there's a couple of facets to it. One is that we are dental specific. I mean, we spent a long time in the industry, and so we work exclusive. We work with dentists, we work with orthodontists, and those two are different. A lot of people don't realize how different those two are, even though they are related, but the approaches are quite different. So having that experience there, both from a group dental side, but also from private practice side, I think also just uh, having been my own business owner, I mean, that alone, where I'm not an account executive that's hired on an agency that has really, I spend other people's money, but I've never had to spend mine to generate clients. That's different, when I talked about the photography company, like I had to make that work. Otherwise, it wasn't going to work for my family. I had a wife, and at that time we had a child and bills to pay, and it was rough at the start, right? And you have to figure it out. Otherwise, you don't eat. Like you don't, you have to go get a new job. You have to do all these things. And so that plays, into my thought process as well. The final thing would be is our approach is a little bit different. Well, there's two aspects of it. One is it's an educational approach too. We try and educate our patients. When we're working with clients, we use that to educate our patients on the best decisions for them. How do we make the best decisions possible? And that includes a lot of education, understanding the different outcomes and their choices and things like that. And then the final thing I'll say is that our model is a little bit different in that we don't do long-term contracts. We don't kind of force you into those things. We do month to month, and that is good because it keeps us honest every single month that we have to produce, every single month. And some would say, well, that's dumb because it's not every month does. But it's a great way. I think a lot of our clients respect that because things change inside the practice. And I don't want them to ever feel handcuffed if they don't feel like it's working out. And I'm the same way too. If I don't feel like it's working out on our end, maybe the client isn't in giving us what we need, then we'll just say, we'll depart as friends, no harm done, and so that's a big bonus too.
Excellent. So I have a couple more questions because I really enjoyed everything you said. You started a photography business. You did that. You did marketing for a DSO. Um, why in this marketing business? Why are you targeting dentists specifically? Do you just find you have a propensity or an understanding for that, or do you just have a soft spot in your heart for dentists and orthodontists?
Yeah, I mean both. I mean I would say, the experience is unique in that I have firsthand experience from the group level, the private practice level, that years and years of doing this type of marketing specific to the industry is, I mean, you try and come in from a different industry and there's certain things that will carry over. There's certain principles that apply no matter what industry, but the research and the understanding and the jargon and even the conversational pieces that patients are tend to use, that's all gained and acquired over time, and so that I would say that's a big part. But I also, it's funny because I joke about this. It's, people say, oh, you do advertise. They're excited about, oh, you have an ad agency. And I say, yes. And they say, well, what do you advertise? And I say, oh, for dentists and orthodontists. And their face kind of falls because it's not like an exciting thing, to the consumers. But I actually like that in the way, in the sense that I'm kind of the same. Like before, I didn't recognize the value that dentists and orthodontists provide. I mean, just from maintenance and all that stuff, that's great, but it's so much more than that. There's the confidence level. They also do, I mean, all these cancer screenings. There's all the science too. I mean, it shows up in the mouth oftentimes more sooner than anywhere else in the body. And so there's really this neat oral connection, this connection to the whole body as well. And so I've kind of become fascinated with all that as in addition to just the experience. So yeah, it's fun.
No, I appreciate what you're saying. I love uh, teaching dentists about their unique value proposition. Uh, I think from a patient standpoint, a lot of patients have the concept that dentistry is a commodity, and it just isn't.
Yeah,
Every dentist has their own skill and specialty and things like that. A lot of dentists that I found that I work with, I found that they when they start to open their own practice, they think, well, you know what, I'm going to accept insurance because that's going to bring uh, patients to my door because billing for insurance, that's kind of a hassle, which is why, we do that for the doctors.
right.
But why isn't just accepting insurance and getting referrals from the insurance company, why isn't that enough? Why, if I just sign up with the insurance companies and I just tell people that I take insurance, why won't people just fill my chair?
It's a good question. I mean, it depends on the area. Some areas where you do get a lot of people that go to those insurance websites specifically to find a dentist. But then you're also competing. They show a page of you and your competitors that you're trying to pick from, and it's not always the best solution for that patient because they don't realize that Kevin's going to do a better job than Dave over here or Jen over there, because they don't have any context there. So I think it's great. Again, it's kind of understanding. It comes back to that value piece where you know what you do really, really well, and you don't want patients because you hear the horror stories all the time where they go to a provider and it just is a terrible experience. Either they don't fully understand what they're doing. It was really painful. It was, drawn out. It was complicated in terms of insurance and all that stuff. We've all had those experiences. And so if you are someone that's takes pride in the way that you operate your practice, then again, that comes back to that moral obligation to share it with your patients so that they can help you find more patients that want that type of experience. Um, but yeah, it's never going to be enough. I don't think it'll rarely be enough. I shouldn't say never, but rarely be enough to just rely on insurance referrals. Those are great and they can be good. They're not always great. Sometimes they're great, sometimes they're not. But a lot of times we want patients that they want to come to our practice because they've heard about the experience from our practice, not just because they were listed as in network with Delta Dental.
Yeah, and when you look at those insurance pages that list the dentist, I think that helps promote the stigma that dentistry is a commodity because they
Yeah.
don't talk about each dentist's unique value
No,
proposition. They're
no,
just
they
listed
definitely don't.
like they accept our insurance. They have a contract with that dentist. Like to the insurance company, it is kind of a commodity. They're just going
Yeah,
to pay the
very much
lowest
so.
lowest possible rate. So just a couple more questions because you super intrigued me with, and again, marketing is not my strength. Um, so part of your system, I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, is like when a patient if the dentist themselves don't feel comfortable asking for referrals, they're going to set expectations, they're going to over deliver on those expectations, they're going to create a unique positive experience when they're checking out. um, then does your system include like training the staff on like, hey, like this is your portion of the
Mhm.
payment, this is, your next, and do you train the staff then to ask for referrals at that point?
Good question. Yeah, we've kind of mapped it out. So we have a referral map is what we call it. And it's this visual timeline essentially of all these different referral opportunities, from the first phone call, to first appointment, inside as they're first coming into the desk to sitting down with the doctor to, all there's like 20 something odd points, where you can ask for these referrals. And we have scripts that you can start with and then you can modify based on your specific practice. But yes, it's all part of that process because you have to train, we have to all get there as a team. You can't have the doctor who's just referral minded, but the other, the hygienist, the front desk, and they're like, oh, I'm too afraid to ask for referrals. Like that's so scary, they don't feel it. You're not getting many of those referrals.
Okay. No, that may, here I'm thinking like asking once and you're sitting there saying, no, there's like multiple opportunities to ask for referrals. See, this is why you're in marketing and I'm in medical billing or dental billing, insurance billing. Yeah. No, it's when you explain it, it's like, oh, of course, that just makes sense. One last question. You mentioned that if a patient refers another patient, that other patient comes in, that you will give you'll give you ask the doctor to give a free cleaning or a free x-ray or something like that. How do you reward the customer that gave the referral?
Good question. It is, we the main thing that I found, the most effective thing that I found for the person who sends the referral is recognition. And it does not need to be a big gift. A thank you card goes so far. I mean, it's more often than not, it's just saying, Kevin, I saw you saw what you did. That was amazing. Like that totally made my day. And that's going to be better than almost any other gift you could have given. Now there's laws and things like that in terms of incentivizing people to refer. So you have to check with your counsel, legal counsel on that, but and it's different per state. So we generally don't do something like that, but a thank you card, and then oftentimes we'll recognize them in like a patient email newsletter. So just say, oh, huge shout out to, and just name the first names because we with HIPAA and everything like that, you want to be careful. But like you said, thank you to Kevin and Joanne, and just list them out for their referrals for this past week or something like that. So those are the recognition goes way farther than any other gift that I've ever found.
So you don't recommend the dentist ask them what their favorite candy is, and then when they give a referral, send them a thank you card and their favorite candy, because then that
Well,
ensures repeat business.
I'm okay with that too, honestly. I mean, again, talk with your legal counsel, but I think something like that is pretty awesome. I mean, it just shows that you're paying attention. It shows that you value that relationship, and anything that gets recognized, we tend to try and repeat those behaviors. So the more often you can recognize them, the more ingrained they will be.
Very good. Can you put up your slide again on your contact information?
Yeah, you bet.
We'll close out with that. So, Mark, thank you so much for coming today. I really enjoyed your message. There's your contact information. Yeah, email or call him. I've worked with Mark for a while. He's really good at what he does, and I am super proud and excited to make him part of our success series in helping dentists and orthodontists just run a practice, get the lifestyle that you were promised when you went to school, get paid for what you do. That's our goal here. So
Yeah.
thanks, Mark. With that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. I'm looking to see if anybody else has any questions. I think we answered everybody's questions. I'm not seeing any others come through. But if you have a question for Mark, just go ahead and reach out to his email there. Thanks
All right.
again for coming, Mark, and
Thanks, Kevin.
we'll see you around.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right.